I am your host, Justin Bruni. Today we are doing the Week 4 preview, going over the Week 4 matchups, who we're starting, who we're benching, who we're putting into our flex spot, who we feel comfortable with, and who we don't. And then we're also just going to cover briefly just the game totals, going over the over and unders. The first game that we have up here, we're looking at Carolina going into Houston. I would start Kyle Allen this week. The Houston pass defense has not been great. I see both teams having some opportunity this week. Kyle, I think Houston's let up like the 8th most fantasy points to the quarterback position, so there is some opportunity for Kyle Allen there. Maybe he doesn't hit the 4-touchdown game, but I could see the game flow in Houston, pushing a higher game total. The offense for the Carolina Panthers really revolves around CMC, who you are starting for sure. There's no reason why you would never why you would ever put him on your bench, right? He keeps the options open for their playbook, because he can catch the ball and he can rush the ball. He really is going to keep defenses guessing and really gives the Panthers a lot of options for their offensive game plan and scheming. So obviously you're starting him. Not too scared about his matchup this week. Starting DJ Moore, starting Curtis Samuel, starting Greg Olsen. So Curtis Samuel, he had about 7 targets last week with Allen in the lineup. Had 50 yards, 5 catches, and a touchdown. DJ Moore didn't get the same volume. He only had 2 targets, but he did hit on a deep play for a 50-yard touchdown, which is nice to see. So I'm still confident starting those guys. I think that DJ Moore will get a little bit more action this week. And then Greg Olsen, he had 7 targets, 6 catches for 2 touchdowns. He had a really great week last week. Looked to have some chemistry with Kyle Allen. The only issue with Greg Olsen and starting him is that you still need to follow his health status into Sunday, right? You still have to follow that storyline, see where things are rolling along with his back. He's been having issues, but, along with many other tight ends and even like Tom Brady in the league, he's just getting regular rest, that's all. He's just getting a regular scheduled rest during the week. So not something that I'm really worried about. You can be confident that he'll be in your lineup this Sunday. If you start seeing some negative information, in the news feeds come, Saturday night, Sunday morning, whatever, maybe you got to pull him out if he has a setback. But I think he should be good to go. And DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Greg Olsen, they're all on the field a ton. They don't get taken out a lot, and that's great to see for Olsen. At his age, playing 85, 90% of the snap count. So definitely get him into your lineup. Jarius Wright is just like a super deep flyer. I could see him getting maybe 4 to 5 catches potentially in this matchup, but he's a DFS play at best. I don't think that I'm going to plug him into any weekly lineups. He's not really a guy that's owned in many places either. Shifting over to Houston here, Deshaun Watson. Right, you're going to start him. You're going to start your top guys. Your Deshaun Watson, Patty Mahomes. I did the must-start video the other day. Some of these guys, it's just without question, right? So let's see here. The Panthers have not allowed more than 200 pass yards to the QB position in the first 3 games. Still doesn't scare me. I can definitely see Deshaun Watson hitting over 250 passing yards this week, still maybe throwing up a couple of touchdowns. The main focus for me with Houston is making sure that the offensive line, is just there for Deshaun Watson. If we can get 4 sacks or less, we're trending in the right direction if you're the Houston Texans. So look for that most importantly. If they're protecting Deshaun Watson, that will really show a lot as far as where the game flow is going to go. If he's getting a lot of time behind that offensive line, they'll probably let him pass some more. You're starting Carlos Hyde this week, but I think it's pretty safe to say that we can bench Duke Johnson. They were like trying out C.J. Anderson this past week. There doesn't seem to be a ton of confidence in Duke Johnson, and he only had like 4 touches last week. Just the volume isn't there for him. I think it's easy to put him on your bench at this point until he gives us a reason to, do otherwise, and until he gives us a reason to get him back into our lineups or force us to put him into our starting lineups. Feel pretty comfortable starting the wide receivers in this matchup. Hopkins, Fuller, Stills all seem to be viable in this week's game plan. I do see a lot more like shorter intermediate route attack against the Panthers. Like I said, they've been holding quarterbacks in check under 200 yards each game thus far. So look for a lot of check down stuff to Hopkins, Fuller, Stills, maybe some screens early on, some early out routes, right off the line of scrimmage, stuff like that. Not starting Kute, not starting Atkins. Atkins had a pretty big week last week, catching 2 touchdowns on 3 balls or on 3 catches. Just ridiculous type of volatility there. Not ready to start him yet. Not getting cute with him. So keeping Kute and Atkins on my bench, starting the receivers, starting Watson, starting Hyde, and keeping Duke on the bench there as well for Houston. For the over-under in this game, we got 47.5 points. I'll take the over on this. I still think that both sides will score a lot of points. The Houston defense is, both defenses have been strong thus far, but I do think that the offenses will come alive here in Houston. Give me an over 47.5 points. I could definitely see like a 27-24 game, 31-28. I do think it will be a little bit more high scoring. Okay, next we have the Browns at the Ravens. I am not starting Baker Mayfield this week, despite the Ravens giving up the 15th most receiving yards to the quarterback position or their receivers. I'm not confident enough in this play. They've been mistake-ridden. The offense really seems to flow through Nick Chubb the most. So that's what I want. I'll throw Nick Chubb in my lineup for sure. The Ravens are still allowing the second fewest yards to the rush behind the Patriots. I'm still plugging in Nick Chubb just because the offense. He's the identity, right? He's going to rush. He's going to catch balls out of the backfield. Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. They're there, but they're not producing. Outside of a big play from OBJ on Monday Night Football against the Jets, I'm just really not that impressed with either of these guys. The upside for Landry is that he's coming out of the slot. He'll play a lot in that space, and that's safe. Baker Mayfield will be looking for some safer plays in the middle of the field. Looking for Landry to be able to create space up against linebackers and things like that. I do think that OBJ may be held more in check this week. The Ravens defense, like I said, they're allowing, what did I say, the 15th most receiving yards. So they're pretty much middle of the field in that regard. So Landry and OBJ have opportunities this week. I will start them. Most Landry in a flex spot, OBJ in a standard wide receiver slot. I'm not starting Demetrius Harris. He caught a TD last week. Ricky Seals-Jones caught a pass or two. Between the two of them, I think they caught 3 or 4 passes, and Demetrius Harris had a touchdown. Not enough upside there, not enough volume. I'm really, having a hard time, benching, some of these Browns. Like Chubb, Landry. Obviously, you can't bench OBJ. It's really difficult though. Based off of the name on the back of their jersey, and we're already getting into that territory where you got to rip it off. And you got to start the guys that just give you the most upside. But I do think that there is enough value up against the Ravens secondary for Landry and OBJ to have a serviceable week or have serviceable weeks for your fantasy lineup. So you can still get them in there, but you're not getting cute with Demetrius Harris. I think there's other quarterback plays out there that you can find that are much stronger than Baker Mayfield right now. So for the Ravens, you're starting Lamar Jackson, playing top QB1 level. The Browns are a top 10 defense against the pass. They're also pretty strong up against the run, top 15 defense up against the run. So the Ravens won't have a cakewalk per se, but I believe in them right now. I trust them right now. Even when they were playing against Kansas City in Kansas City, it wouldn't go away, guys. I mean, they were on 4th and down going for it every single time because they knew what it would take to have to beat Kansas City. And that's probably playing 4-down football, when you have the ability to do so. It's not like they were playing on 4th and down, inside their 40 or something like that. But you know what I mean. They were aggressive. They stayed on the gas. So I look for them to continue to do the same at home against a divisional opponent that they really need to look out for, because if the Browns get rolling, that'll really be the only competition for the Ravens in this division. So I do think that the Ravens are going to look to kind of choke out the Browns this week. If they can get this track meet rolling again. Against a more difficult defense for sure, but this offense is very creative for the Baltimore Ravens, so I'm definitely starting some pieces here still. Starting Mark Ingram, expect some usage out of Gus Edwards this week. Like I said, the Browns defense is a top 15 rushing defense, so look for both running backs to get included. Maybe we see some Justice Hill action. I don't know. I finally gave up on Justice Hill. I had to drop him. 3 weeks, no action, no injuries from the top guys. Had to let him go. So I'm sure in like a week, 2 max, I'll be rushing to spend all my fob on him after some type of bust off or big plays or someone gets hurt or something crazy. So yeah, starting Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, deeper formats. If you need a touchdown dependent running back, a flyer guy, you can plug him in there. I think he does get anywhere from 8 to 10 touches this week, Gus Edwards. For the receivers, definitely going to be starting Mark Andrews, definitely starting Hollywood Brown, but the other guys just don't really do it for me. There's nothing really that impressive there from Snead, Roberts, Moore, any of these other guys with any consistency. Moore and Roberts, they're on the field a ton, but they can't catch a cold. I've mentioned this before. So for me, it's Mark Andrews. He's the big guy that I want to start there outside of Hollywood Brown. Hayden Hurst was targeted 5 times last week, including a red zone target. So you see some volatility in those 2 guys, but Mark Andrews is playing, career high snap percentages. They're splitting time, Hurst, Andrews, and Nick Doyle. I don't know why his name was escaping me there. And Nick Doyle. Doyle and Hurst are mostly on like blocking assignments, and Andrews is, playing as more of like a pass catching role, especially in the red zone. But like I said, Hurst was getting targeted last week. Could have just been the matchup with Kansas City, looking for some more opportunities, some more chances, but you could see them getting him the ball more going forward. Andrews is another guy that's been on, a rest regiment throughout the week, someone that's not practicing a majority of the week, that they feel confident, with that setup, letting him get that extra rest so that he's going into Sunday, as close to 100% as can be when he's only playing, 50, 55% of the snaps at best. So I'm still starting Mark Andrews this week. Obviously, you want to follow him into Sunday if anything changes or if he has any setbacks at the last minute. Over-under for this game is at 45. Give me the over. Give me a 27-21 victory for the Ravens. I think that the Browns will maybe come alive at the end, down a couple of touchdowns and get it close. But Ravens will still take care of this one at home, scoring 3 touchdowns, a couple field goals, and still taking care of business up against the top defense in the Browns. Next up, we have the Chiefs at the Lions. If you have a Chiefs player, you're probably going to start them if they're healthy. So, of course, you're starting Patrick Mahomes. Dude's only setting the standard for the new modern NFL quarterback. No big deal or anything, guys. Get him in your lineups. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Okay, it's Patrick Mahomes. Get him in there. Follow LeSean McCoy's status into Sunday. He's been banged up. He came into the building, limping into the building last week, Came in limping, gave us all a scare. Everyone ran to pick up Darrell Williams. That was me at 11:55 or 12:55 per your time zone. I was out there looking for my Darrell Williams shares, trying to go and grab him before he cost you $1 billion fob dollars. So with Dame Williams out this week, you have to be starting Darrell Williams as well if you have him. If he's available this week and you're desperate for a running back and no one else knows about him, go get him because he's going to get used in this role, in this pass catching role for the Kansas City offense in the running back position. That's how Dame Williams was getting used, and that's where I saw the majority of his value coming this year. I was banging the Dame Williams drum all summer long. I still kept him in the league. He's on my bench, all banged up, right? So, coming in, expecting him to hit, 700 to 900 rushing yards and, almost that same mark in receiving yards in this offense, hot stove has been cooled on Dame Williams. What are you going to do? But that role now goes to Darrell Williams or really whoever's there. Whatever guy can be used in the pass catching role on that offense, you have to have in your lineup. So get Darrell Williams in there if he's available. As far as Darwin Thompson goes, yeah, the upside is still there, but LeSean McCoy's got to be out of the lineup, or we have to get some real news, not like some oh, he's limping. That doesn't look good, right? You can't just limp into the building pulling your leg along. That's not good. And then we all interpreted that and thought that he wasn't going to play. They even listed Darrell Williams as the starter. So if they say LeSean McCoy's out, fire up Darwin Thompson. But if McCoy is starting, if he's playing, if he's a game-time decision that is a good to go, keep Darwin on your bench. All these running backs should be owned, by the way. Darrell Williams, Darwin Thompson, Dame Williams still, and LeSean McCoy. They all have to be owned in this offense, in this system, because of the health questions of Dame Williams and McCoy thus far. So you have to have all of them I'm not saying on the same team, but they all need to be owned. For the wide receivers, excuse me, you're starting Demarcus Robinson. Samuel Watkins on my must-start list. Mecole Hardman, you got to start him as well. Kelsey too. All comfortable starting these guys. Again, you're looking at the top-tier offense in the league. Best in class. With Patrick Mahomes at the helm. So Robinson, Watkins, Hardman, Kelsey, ceilings all high this week. Playing on the road against the Lions, who I think are still going to be really competitive. Last year Kansas City actually lost to the Lions in Detroit. So I do look for the Lions to still be competitive. I am starting Matt Stafford this week. He is on my must-start list. The Chiefs have allowed the 14th most yards to the quarterback position. So expect a lot of Chiefs pressure up front, to try and bring pressure on Stafford. I do expect him to be, starting out the game with a lot of shorter, intermediate passes, not pushing the ball down the field too soon. So the Chiefs will look to bring a lot of pressure early on because the rush is going to be there. Kerryon Johnson is going to try to run the ball a lot. He's absolutely someone that you're starting. The Chiefs have allowed the 7th most rush yards against in the league thus far. So look for them to rush early on, blitz a lot, bring a lot of pressure on Stafford, bring pressure on Kerryon Johnson because they haven't been playing very well against the run. So they're going to have to try and mix some things up, to try and slow down Johnson and the Lions because, that's at least what they've said, they want to do is lean on the run game. So you have to imagine that, Kerryon Johnson can get at least 20 touches in this game if things are rolling correctly. But with Baltimore Ravens, like I said for last week, they were on the gas the whole game. They were relentless against the Chiefs. They would not go away, going for it on 4th down almost every time in scoring position. So, I look for the Lions and pretty much the rest of the NFL to kind of continue to play that same tune. You have to be aggressive against these guys. You have to be pushing the ball down the field. If you get up, you have to maybe... No, you can't even try and park the bus on these guys, So Kerryon Johnson, he should get a lot of usage. Kenny Galladay, he's a must-start. I do like Marvin Jones this week. I do like Amendola if he's healthy. Follow his status into Sunday. And even Hawkinson this week. The air attack up against the Chiefs, should be there. It should be available, especially if the Lions are chasing points. So I feel comfortable starting all these guys. Hawkinson is probably my most fringe guy in the matchup that I would be worried about starting just because him and Amendola have shown some volatility, but I think if they're healthy, they're going to need all these guys to beat Kansas City. They're not going to be able to get it done with just a couple of playmakers. They're going to have to spread things around. Like I said, expect the Lions to be chasing points. Pass catchers should eat. 55 points is the game total here. Give me the over. KC is always keeping things lively, always keeping the game total, respectably high just because they can bust off 30 points, in any given week. All right, next, Chargers at Fins. You have to start your Chargers. You're starting Rivers, of course. You're starting Eckler. You're starting Jackson. You're starting Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is going to be getting a ton of targets this week. Mike Williams is hurt. Travis Benjamin is hurt. So look for a lot of Dontrell Inman and Jeremy Davis lined up alongside Keenan Allen this week. Between the two, if you're looking for like a strong DFS play, maybe throw in some Dontrell Inman. I don't think that you're going to throw Jeremy Davis in any of your lineups, Dontrell Inman in any of your regular weekly lineups. I don't think that's a good idea at this point. But against this defense, against the Miami Dolphins, if you can get one of these guys right and they go off for a big game in DFS, then hey, all power to you. If you're super desperate, I can understand it. I mean, obviously the matchup is there. I think that in park the bus mode, once the Chargers go up, you could see a lot of Justin Jackson this week. He's a must-start for me. And I think you could see a lot of Dontrell Inman. I think that they could be the MVPs of garbage time this week. So, yeah, fire up Rivers. He's a must-start. The Dolphins have allowed like a league-high 10 passing touchdowns to the quarterback position. You're starting Eckler. You're starting Jackson. Yes, Melvin Gordon is coming back next week. So that'll be something that we talk about going forward. But for this week, I expect a lot of action for Eckler in the pass-catching game. Same for Allen. And Jackson should get a lot of work in garbage time, running the ball in between the tackles. So, that's pretty much it for the Chargers. For the Dolphins, yeah, what have I said about the Dolphins, guys? You don't start them. You don't start the Dolphins. So that's it. We're done. No Rosen, no Ballage, no Drake, no Parker, no Williams. Hey, Albert Wilson's back. I don't care. I don't care. No Dolphins. That's it. Over under 44.5. Give me the under 44.5. The Dolphins are morons. They can score 6 or 9 points. Give it 6 points. All right, next up, Pats at the Bills. Two 3-0 teams. You would think this would be a pretty good matchup, but I don't think the scoring is going to be there. And you don't really get to say this often, but I think you can bench Tom Brady this week. I think the Patriots are only going to score 2 or 3 touchdowns, and I'm not putting my money on Tom Brady scoring the majority of those touchdowns. I think he's going to throw 1 touchdown this week, and like I said, 3 touchdowns total. If he gets the 2, that's great. But I'm not going to bank on that because I think that the running backs are going to get used a lot. I'm starting Michelle. I'm starting James White. I'm starting Rex Burkhead as long as he's healthy. Follow his status into Sunday as well. But the Buffalo defense has been strong, and both against the run and both against the pass. I have to assume that there's going to be a lot of check down work to these running backs. I don't want to start Endelman and Gordon, but I understand if you do. There's a lot of leagues where you're looking at your depth right now, and you got guys going into buys this week. You have guys that are banged up. I understand if you have to start Endelman or Gordon. I get it. I'm sure the projections on your screen are looking, respectable still, 10, 11, 12 points, whatever. But I don't think you want to start these guys in this matchup because I think that the Buffalo D is just going to ante up at home against a big matchup against the Patriots. They're playing for the division here, and you got a team that's 3-0 in the Bills that, everyone's excited about. The only team in New York. Yeah, that's great. I'm all on the Bills side. I love the Bills. I love me some Josh Allen, Frank Gore, Devin Singletary, some Cole Beasley and John Brown. I love them. I'm not starting them all this week because they're playing one of the best defenses in the league thus far. This game is not going to be a shutout. So, Endelman, Gordon, if you have to, I get them in your lineups. But if you have the depth there, if you're in like a 12-team league and you're over the top with wide receiver talent, you can bench these guys. You can feel comfortable doing so. But I understand it. 14 teams, you don't have the depth. You got guys on buys. You got to take a shot. You have to take that chance, or you just don't really have a choice. They're your best options just based off their talent alone. I do think Dorsett is a sneaky start this week. No more sneaky snarks. It's a sneaky start this week, Philip Dorsett. I think people may actually be like the most comfortable with him actually, just because that he's not going to get targeted. There's not going to be a game plan to take him out other than hey guys, we got to watch the deep pass every now and again to Philip Dorsett. I think Jacoby Myers could be a super deep flyer this week and maybe DFS. If Endelman and Gordon are getting held in check, or Endelman starts having like chest issues or whatever from his injury this week, that doesn't sound like it's going to keep him out. But if he's getting a setback or takes a bad hit in the game, you could see some Jacoby Myers. Not starting any of the Pats tight ends. Again, guys, it's not going to be a shootout. I'm not too excited about this game. Other than like the actual, who just wins it. Who takes over that division. That'd be cool to see the Bills do that at home. I think they said throwing a dildo on the field, or a dildo landing on the field right now is going for like minus 140. It's a really good betting line, guys, for getting a dildo on the field. Buffalo Bills fans are going to be throwing them all over the place once the Patriots get there. So just side bet, something fun for you. The Bills, I'm fading most of them. When I look at matchup against the Patriots, I'm putting my players on the field up against Bill Belichick in fantasy. That's the way I look at it, because Bill Belichick is going to try and stop all of my fantasy dreams that week. He doesn't want anyone going off on him. He doesn't want Josh Allen rushing for 150 yards and throwing for 250. He doesn't want that. So I'm not going to bet against Bill Belichick right now. He's just killing it. The defense looks great for them. I'm not starting Gore. I'm not starting Singletary. I'm not starting Allen. If I have to start somebody on this offense, it's probably going to be Cole Beasley. John Brown has some upside, but I think that Bill Belichick is going to try to eliminate him. I just think that he's going to try and take him out of their game plan. I can start Beasley with some confidence that he'll get some check down work and that he won't really get taken out of the game plan. And then Dawson Knox as well. Yeah, I think you can get him in your lineup. Tight end position has been very volatile. So Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, probably the only guys that I'm going to get into my lineup for the Bills. Dawson Knox, he's the only healthy tight end right now for the Bills, so there's some upside there. He got some usage last week, even had a rushing attempt, had a touchdown. So he was included in the game plan. I think you can get him into your lineups. Game total for Patriots at the Bills, 42.5. Give me the under. Not a real shootout here, guys. We'd like to see it, but it's not going to happen. Sorry. Okay, next up we have Raiders at the Colts. Derek Carr is a must start this week. The Colts have allowed 7 touchdowns through the air so far through the first 3 weeks. Carr has a healthy Jacobs behind him, a healthy Tyrell Williams to his left and right. Still has Darren Waller there. So I look for Derek Carr and the Raiders to have some opportunity to score some points this week in Indianapolis. T.Y. Hilton's going to be out, so the game flow is going to be kind of convoluted there. You may not see Indianapolis pushing the ball down the field. Both teams maybe just be trying to play keep away here. Starting Josh Jacobs for sure. He looks good to go after being sick last week, getting a limited workload last week. We saw more of Washington, more of Richard. So going to see a lot more Josh Jacobs this week. You should feel confident starting him. The other running backs won't get enough touches to be considerable for starters in DFS or standalone leagues alone. Starting Tyrell Williams, starting Darren Waller. Carr hasn't shown any preference to the other receivers thus far. Not enough volume to spark enough interest in in the Renfros. J.J. Nelson could be an interesting start in DFS, but I'm not plugging him in any of my standard lineups. For the Colts, I'm starting Jacoby Brissett. The Raiders are allowing the 9th most passing yards thus far. Would have been nice to see T.Y. Hilton on the field, but it looks like he is not going to be in the lineup. At least that's where he's trending. The Oakland Raiders losing Jonathan Abram, really exposes their secondary. Look for Brissett to still get over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think that that's literally right at the mark. I see a lot of action for the Marlon Mack and the running backs, for the tight ends and Marlon Mack this week. Marlon Mack should have a huge workload if Hilton is out. Like I said, he's trending that direction. So look for 20-plus touches for Marlon Mack this week, potentially even 20 carries, 5 catches. Raiders are allowing the 14th most rush yards in the league. I don't see enough volume there for Wilkins or Hines to start them in any format. With Hilton out, you're looking at the snap counts for week 3 for the Colts. Deion Kane, 56%. Paris Campbell, 45%. Zach Pascal, 44%. And Chester Rogers, 41%. And be mindful that these guys did nothing well on the field. Maybe 2 to 3 targets, a catch here and there. Zach Pascal, I think, probably had the most production out of these guys. I'm not picking any of them, to be honest with you. I'm not getting them in any of my lineups. If I got to put a chip on somebody, Chester Rogers, was a pretty good performer last year. Paris Campbell, Zach Pascal had that performance last week, but Rogers would be my guy. He just has the most upside for me. If you pick the right one of these guys and they go off, you're going to be making some money on DFS this week for sure. 45.5 is the total here. I want to say the over, but I really think that these two teams could try and play keep away with each other. The defense for the Raiders isn't great, but the Colts don't necessarily have the weapons to push the ball down the field with the air attack. So while I feel like it's the over, my gut's really telling me that it's the under. It's a really tough call, but give me the over in this game. I still think that the Colts could score 4 touchdowns, and the Raiders just could stay in touch. So like a 28-21, 28-24 type of game. Give me the over, but it's really close for me. It's really close. Next up, we have the Titans at the Falcons. I'm not confident on Marcus Mariota thus far. I've not been a buyer of his. I'm selling him wherever you can, and that's not changing this week. Atlanta has allowed the 7th fewest yards against the pass. I don't trust Mariota on the road regardless. I still think it's time for Tannehill. I think that Tannehill could provide a different level of upside for these receivers that Marcus Mariota just doesn't have, unless that receiver is Delaney Walker. That's the only real connection I've seen with him in the air attack, is being able to consistently hit Delaney Walker. And since Rashard Matthews isn't walking through the door tomorrow, I don't know of any receiver that he's going to find a connection with either. So not starting Mariota, starting Derrick Henry for sure. He's a must start, getting used a ton for the Titans. The Falcons have been good against the run, 12th best in the league up against the rush. However, they have let up 5 rushing touchdowns, which is the most touchdowns allowed within that same space of the top 12 teams against the rush. So some poor play against the run, in close in the red zone. Look for Derrick Henry to finish off with a touchdown or 2 this week, in the red zone, whether he catches one or just, drives the hammer or drives the nail home with the hammer, on a 1-2 yard rush up the middle. I don't like the wide receivers Adam Humphries is an interesting play for me just because he came alive last week up against Jacksonville, getting a respectable amount of targets. In the preseason, Humphries looked like he could be a piece that Mariota was comfortable with. I think like their first preseason game, like he was only throwing to Adam Humphries, and I haven't seen any type of connection like that since. So maybe we see a little bit more of Humphries going forward. He outproduced Davis, and he played less than Corey Davis. So I'm definitely not starting Corey Davis. I'm not starting A.J. Brown. Adam Humphries is a deep, sneaky play for me. I don't like it, but if you're going to start a receiver for these guys, I like him the most. Delaney Walker, well, I guess if you consider Delaney Walker, a receiver for them, I like him the most. He's been removed from the final injury report, so he's a must start if you got him. Like I said, he's had the strongest connection with Mariota thus far. He's the only guy really worthy for touchdown consideration in the passing game right now. If Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, or Adam Humphries gets one, I'm just going to call it a fluke because Marcus Mariota threw it to him. Tannehill does it, then hey, it was probably on purpose. All right, so with the Falcons, we got Matt Ryan. He's startable this week despite a solid defense, and the Titans, third fewest yards against the pass. Julio Jones and company just keeps Matt Ryan's value up. When you have Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley playing as well as they are, I think you have to keep Matt Ryan in your lineup, especially if you have guys like Julio Jones or Ridley on your team, and you can stack, Matt Ryan and those guys. Austin Hooper, still been consistent there for him too. So Hooper's ability to get open, Julio Jones, his ceiling, and Calvin Ridley's playmaking ability, they really lend for Matt Ryan to stay in your lineup, to not be a benchable guy. So, he's considerable for sure. I could see why someone might want to put him on the bench, but I'm not going to do it this week. Ito Smith off the injury report looks good to go. Freeman and him are still just eating out of each other's pockets. I don't know what the deal is here. You're pretty much looking at a 60-40 split still for Freeman. Not enough volume for me to start either of these guys. They're both flex plays at best, Ito Smith being just a little bit down the line behind Freeman. I'm not comfortable starting him up against this defense in the Titans. But you probably spent some draft stock on Freeman, so you may feel obligated to start him. I think you can put him on your bench, both of these guys on your bench. I don't think either of them score a touchdown this week, and their fantasy irrelevancy is going to just be based off of them catching passes. So I think you can bench them this week. Starting the pass catchers for the Falcons, Julio, Ridley, Hooper, even Mohamed Sanu in deeper formats. He plays a ton. He's leading the snap count percentage. And we've gone through 4 games, and he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. So I think Mohamed Sanu scores a touchdown this week. He's just due. Okay, so the over-under is 46 for the Falcons and Titans game. Give me the under. I don't think that Titans can run up a high enough score. I think they get 2 touchdowns at most, probably both from Derrick Henry. I don't think they're going to pass for anything. Falcons defense is just is really good, sneaky good. I think Mariota throws a couple interceptions in this game, so give me the under 46 points in that game total, Falcons and Titans. Next up, we have the Redskins at the Giants. I'm not going to be starting either of the Redskins quarterbacks, although there is some upside up against the Giants. I think that whoever the starter is for the Redskins, I think you got to make a stack for them in DFS, up against this Giants defense that's just abysmal. And I think that, the game flow in this game should produce some high-scoring action here. But if Keenum's starting, I have a little bit more confidence. Obviously, Dwayne Haskins, the rookie coming in, first quarterback taken off the board. But I like Keenum's upside just a little bit more. Just the fact that he's been out there with these guys. We've seen him have some success with Terry McLaurin, with Paul Richardson the past couple weeks. So I want to see him out there, but I think that the start is good enough against the Giants D that if you're looking to try and hit big in DFS, that I think you have to have this play in here because I think it's just going to be a lower percentage. I don't think anyone's rushing to start Redskins players in DFS. So monitor Keenum's status going into Sunday. He had a foot sprain after the Monday night game against the Bears. Of course, he got a foot sprain playing the Bears. But either way, I like either quarterback. I like either running back, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson. Give me like a Keenum, Chris Thompson, Terry McLaurin stack, as long as Terry McLaurin is good to go. He's been questionable since like Thursday. He was a late week add, so look for Terry McLaurin status going into Sunday as well. I think you can start Paul Richardson in some deeper formats. I'm not trying to get him, up to the front of the line, but if there's a week to start Paul Richardson and you own him or he's not owned in your league, get him on your team because, you know, this is the week to start him, you know, for fantasy. He's not really going to be relevant for most weeks of the year, but he's shown that, you know, availability will equal production. He's on the field, you know, so he's going to get a look every now and again. He's got a very good matchup this week. Feel comfortable with both of those guys. If scary Terry McLaurin is out for some reason or is limited, then yeah, Paul Richardson should have a really good week, along with Vernon Davis, who you can feel comfortable starting in deeper formats. Again, the Giants' defense is just bad. It's just very simple. Start your Redskins if you got them. I don't mean all of them. You know, you're not you know, running out there for I can't even think of like a third level guy on this team because you're only starting the top guys. I can't even think of anyone deep right now. It's okay. Just start all these guys against the Giants: Vernon Davis, Terry McLaurin, Paul Richardson, Adrian Peterson, Chris Thompson, and whatever quarterback starts. Okay. For the Giants, we're starting Danny Dimes for sure. For sure, Giants playing at home against anyone really that's going to be scoring up against their defense because their defense is going to allow for a high-scoring game flow. That's just the way it is. I look for Danny Dimes, or Dan Jones, let's just call him by his name. I look for Dan Jones to have to do a lot. I think the Giants are going to have to lean on him. Barkley isn't there. He's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, if not longer. So you're firing up Wayne Gallman for sure. You know, they worked out some guys, but they didn't bring anybody in. So they're going with the crew that they got already that was behind Barkley. You know, they didn't sign anybody. You know, they got Gallman, Paul Perkins, was this other guy, Gilliman. He played okay in the preseason, not great. But the Redskins are allowing the 5th most rushing yards against in the league. So you have to get him in your lineup. You know, just because Barkley's not there, you're like, oh, well, they're not going to be as good because Barkley's not there. It's a different look. It's a different team without him. No, get Gallman in your lineup. Same with Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard. Have to get them in your lineup. Must starts this week. The Redskins are allowing, like I believe, like the 12th or 13th most yards to the quarterbacks and wide receivers, and, you know, in the air for passing and receiving yards. So have to get them in there. I think Darius Slayton is a sneaky play this week. I think that he's going to get some points. You know, he had 5 targets last week, racked up over 80 yards. They're going to need another threat in this offense without Barkley there. So look for Dan Jones to spread it around. Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Wayne Gallman, and give me some Darius Slayton as well, guys. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. Game total is at 49. Give me the over. This game total should easily be in the 50s. This game total should be 52, 53, 54. If you get any of those numbers, you can still hit the over. You know, I think this game hits 55, 56, you know, somewhere into that territory. So I feel really comfortable with that call. Give me the Giants at home, you know, like 34, you know, 31. It's almost like a repeat of last week, 36, 32, something like that. I think that this is going to be a high-scoring game. Who's playing defense? You know, where's the defense coming from? Who's going to attribute to that aspect of the game? So give me a lot of points in that game. Next, we have the Seahawks traveling to Arizona. Russell Wilson, a must-start for you, coming off a huge performance last week, 4 touchdowns. Did have one of them as a late-game touchdown, kind of like a garbage time. You know, game was not in question type of situation. But still, give me 250 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns this week for Russ Wilson. Maybe sprinkle in a rushing touchdown if Chris Carson doesn't get rolling. But Chris Carson's still getting touted as the go-to guy in Seattle. Look for him to still get a solid workload despite his, you know, week 2 and week 3 woes. Arizona allowing the fourth most yards to the running back position. So it is a get-right game if I have ever seen one for Chris Carson. Penny still banged up but has a good shot to return. Look for C.J. Prosise and Rashad Penny to work behind Chris Carson quite a bit, especially if Carson starts to check out of this game. If he puts a ball on the ground, you're going to see Prosise in there real fucking quick. Same with Penny. If he's good to go, he'll get a fair amount of action. But I do believe that they are trying to put their chips all in on Chris Carson still. They want him to be the workload guy, and they want him to find success because if he does, you know, their offense will flow. They will roll. Starting up, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Will Disley. In this matchup, you have to. Arizona allowing 8th most yards up against receivers. Like, guys, we have to. Patrick Peterson is still out for another 3 weeks. You have to keep firing up the weapons up against Arizona week in and week out. Tyler Lockett getting a lot more volume. DK Metcalf showing that he's a worthy wide receiver to be in the NFL. Will Disley, you know, solidifying his role in that offense. So all of these guys have upside. Get him into your lineups. They're all must-starts this week up against a terrible Arizona Cardinals defense. Cardinals, we're looking at starting Kyler Murray, but he's benchable if you're streaming with other solid options. You know, the Seattle pass defense is in the middle of the pack, but the air raid is just, you know, fantasy positive in general. The air raid offense, it just produces a lot of opportunity for him. But at the same time, you're passing a lot. Yeah, all the positives can be there, a lot of completions, but the interceptions can be there. Chances for fumbles, putting balls on the ground, etc. You know, the more volume, the more opportunity for good and bad. So I like Kyler Murray this week, but if you have some other options that we've kind of gone over, some must-starts, maybe like a Dan Jones or something like that, you know, I'm not worried about benching Kyler Murray at any point. Yes, he's good. The volume is there, but he can still be mistake-oriented. So I don't have a problem benching him if you have another solid piece right along with him that maybe has a juicier matchup. Like I said, Seattle defense, it's in the middle of the pack, and they're playing on the road. So I see some positives. I see some negatives for Kyler this week. Definitely starting David Johnson. His role in the offense is never in question. Should have a good workload in the passing game over the rush this week. Seattle has been killing it against the run. They're the third best in the league. So I expect David Johnson to catch quite a few balls this week. I expect him to have a good workload, catching balls out of the backfield. You're starting Christian Kirk. You're starting Larry Fitzgerald. Both of these guys are tied for the league high in snaps at the slot position. So they're getting used a lot in the middle of the field, trying to create a lot of space. You see Kirk lining up in the middle of the field a lot, breaking out to the outside. You know, both of them have looked really good. I wasn't as high on Christian Kirk, but you need to be at this point. Kyler has shown that, you know, some favoritism to him. Larry Fitz, the same. Larry Fitz not getting a ton of like big chunk plays, but getting a lot of easy check down work, getting a lot of easy points in the pass catching game in PPR. So Larry Fitz is a must start every week. Christian Kirk right now the same. Not starting any of these tight ends, and I'm not getting cute with any of the wide receivers behind them. Jameer Byrd was limited. I think they actually cut Michael Crabtree. I'm not sure. I think they cut Michael Crabtree. I'll have to check that out. Andy Isabella not doing anything. Just want the top guys. They're getting the most volume. Everyone else is kind of getting sprinkled in. So give me Larry Fitz. Give me Kirk and Johnson there against Seattle. 48 points is the game total. I got to go with the over here. I think the Cardinals, you know, this offense just doesn't go away. They keep pushing the ball. I just feel that, you know, Kyler can be, you know, mistake-oriented sometimes. So you may not have as much upside or motivation to, you know, plug him into your lineups. But I do like the game total here. Give me over 48 points in this matchup. Seahawks are going to the Cardinals. Next up, we have the Bucks at the Rams. I am not starting Jameis Winston this week. Going on a you know, rough outing on the road to the West Coast. Rams defense has been really good, shutting down quarterbacks. You know, averaging less than 200 yards a game. They're at under 600 total yards, and only has allowed one passing touchdown from a quarterback. So, not excited about Winston and the Bucks this week. I still want to start Evans. I can understand why you would bench him, but with Godwin trending in a bad direction, looking like he could potentially be out or very limited this week, I think that keeps Evans' upside, you know, just up. I think it keeps his upside available. I think Howard is the same, but I just think that their opportunities are going to be limited. You know, maybe they each get a shot at the end zone, but damn it, they better come down with that one shot at the end zone because the opportunities are going to be limited for them up against a strong Rams defense. I'm not starting any of the running backs here. I'm not starting Peyton Barber. I'm not starting Rojo. Again, too much volatility there. You don't know what you're going to get. You know, Rojo looks like potentially the best back, but they're not feeding him the ball enough. And I get it too. You know, he's not a great pass protector. He makes mistakes. He puts the ball on the ground. Peyton Barber, just inconsistent. Sure, you can give him 20 carries a game, and maybe he does something with that. But the next week, you can't rely on him to do exactly the same. So I'm not confident in either of those guys. I will start Evans. I will start Howard. But that's about it for the Bucks, guys. I do not recommend starting Winston this week, even in Superflex. Get him on your lineups. The defense for the Rams is the real deal. They're really good this year, and they've only allowed one passing touchdown to the quarterback. Some of you are probably sitting there like, yeah, they're due. Right? They're due. You know, only one is like, you know, not a lot. So maybe Winston throws $1 billion or 5. 5 is different than $1 billion, but you know what I mean. You could go contrarian here and say, oh, hey, you know, this is the week where the Rams D falters, but I'm not going to put any chips into that pot. I'm not going to bet on them losing one or fading their defense at home. The Rams, you're looking at Jared Goff, who is startable up against the Bucks, who have given up quite a bit of yards. It was mostly last week to Dan Jones. Dan Jones carved up the Bucks secondary, but they really limited Jimmy Garoppolo and Cam Newton. So I am interested to see what they can do up against Jared Goff and these receiving weapons. I'm not starting Malcolm Brown this week. Gurley is someone that I'm starting. I expect him to get most of the usage. We haven't seen a ton from Malcolm Brown from his big week 1 performance, those 2 touchdowns. It seemed like I don't know, it just seems like they kind of worked Gurley in since then and have just, kind of steadily used him, a lot since the second half of that first game for week 1 for the Rams. Malcolm Brown did a ton in that first half of week 1, but going after that, Gurley was, kind of has been the guy. Finally found pay dirt last week, I believe. So Gurley does have 1 touchdown in the season. Maybe you'll get him another touchdown this week. I like the receivers, of course. Give me Olive Woods, Kupp, Cooks. All of the 3, again, you're going to find a ton of volatility, but I think you can start them with comfort. I think it's more of a Woods and Cooper Kupp week. I think that the Bucks may try to limit the damage that Cooks can do in the secondary in the deep ball game. So if I have to pick 2 out of the 3, I go Woods, Kupp, Cooks. Gun to my head, I got to pick 1 out of all of them. I'm probably going Cooper Kupp, just because I think that the Bucks defense could step up some, could be a little bit more sneaky than you think, and lock down the big guys and just say, hey, let him throw the little dude 5 yards out, and we'll take care of business on him. We'll make sure that he doesn't go anywhere with it or doesn't get any yards after catch. So starting all of them, but again, if I have to favorite 1 out of all of them, I'd say Kupp. 2 out of 3, Woods and Kupp. I think that Cooks could be the odd man out this week. They're all eating out of each other's pockets, like I said before. So you're not sure what you're going to get each week with these receivers. Not starting any of the Rams tight ends, so you can feel pretty safe there. No, neither of them are going to go off. Gerald Everett had the field to himself last week and didn't do anything. I think Tyler Higbee is going to be back this week, so I'm not too excited about any tight end play for the Rams. The over and under in this game is 49 points. The under, it's just going to be too much defense for the Bucks. I don't think they score too many points here. Yeah, they'll be down and they'll be chasing points, and you will assume that they'll keep taking shots, but I just don't see it. With Godwin out, I don't know if they have enough guns to go to war with the Rams this week. Next, we have the Jags at the Broncos. Real tough game to call here. I really like Gardner Minshew, but I think that he could get held in check this week up against a tougher defense. I don't see him blowing up for big numbers. I do see Leonard Fournette helping out quite a bit. I think that he is going to, keep things rolling for them and could put Gardner Minshew into a situation where he's, not making a lot of deep passes, but he's able to close in the red zone, maybe able to get a couple of 10, 12-yard passing touchdowns, something like that, something in close. So I'm only starting Gardner Minshew in Superflex. I really want to go out on a limb and say he's going to have a big week and he's going to have a great performance. But the Denver Broncos have played pretty respectfully to the quarterback position, so I'm not going to do that. I will say that he's a must start in Superflex leagues. I'm starting Fournette this week. Denver's kind of middle of the road when it comes to defending the run, so I like Fournette's upside. They use him in the passing game quite a bit. Fournette's only 7 or 8 catches away from his pass catching total from last year. So he's getting used quite a bit. When he's not getting used in the run, they'll pass him the ball. They're not putting Raquel Armstead on the field. So I like his value still going forward. I'm not ready to bail on him just yet. Starting D.D. Westbrook and DJ Shark, they've been the most consistent thus far in a tougher matchup this week, but I can feel confident starting them just based off of Gardner Minshew, the identity of the offense, with Fournette. If he's not hitting his spots in the tackles, these guys are going to have to do a lot of work, or they're just going to be passing quite a bit. So I like D.D. Westbrook and DJ Shark's upside. DJ Shark showing the ability to stretch the field. D.D. Westbrook showing the ability to clean things up, in close, underneath, intermediate, short stuff. So give me both of those guys. No Marquise Lee this week. No Chris Conley. Chris Conley was banged up. He would have been someone that I think would have been a sneaky start, but he's banged up. He's been limited in practice, so I don't really feel comfortable with him. Not starting any of the tight ends here either. O'Shaughnessy had a touchdown last week, had a little bit of volume, but just not enough there for me to entice me to get him into my lineups. Next, we're looking at the Broncos. Not starting Flacco. Hasn't shown much upside in any of his play. The Jags D could struggle without Jalen Ramsey, sure, but there's just not enough there for me to start Flacco. Starting Lindsey and Freeman, I think that they will be the focal points of the offense once more, while you're mixing in Cortland Sutton, Emmanuel Sanders, and maybe some Noah Fant. So I'm starting Lindsey, I'm starting Freeman, not starting Flacco, not sexy enough for me, still mistake-oriented, can throw picks. Fire up Cortland Sutton, fire up Emmanuel Sanders. Sanders is off the final injury report. He's good to go. And there'll be some upside for them there if Ramsey isn't there, if he's not on the field. A lot of people, Adam Schefter, saying that he's betting on Ramsey not being there. So I still think that this game total can hit the over. It's 37.5. I think that's actually, just low. I just think it's too low. I think that Gardner Minshew and the Jags can come in and score, 21, 24 points and, make this a pretty much a field goal game. 27-24, 31-28 if the offenses could actually get rolling. I don't know if they'll get that high, but I do see this game hitting the over. Give me over 37.5 points. I think the Jags are a sneaky team on the road, and I think the Broncos are really going to be playing aggressive to get their first win, at home even. Okay, so you got the Vikings now going to the Bears. Not starting Cousins. I don't have enough, upside with him going up against the Bears defense, who does still allow a fair amount of action to the pass game, but they're going to stall your offense in the red zone. Once you get down in close with these Bears, man, they hold you to a different standard. It's just not the same thing. I think they've only allowed 5 rushing touchdowns since the arrival of Khalil Mack. That's crazy. That's nuts. I mean, you still have to start Dalvin Cook, though, right? I mean, he's been the best running back in the league thus far. I would assume that he's going to catch some balls this week. The only reason I'm not starting Cousins is because I think he's going to throw an interception or two up against his Bears defense. They bring crazy pressure on you. But I think that Dalvin Cook gets a fair amount of action. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm starting Stephon Diggs still. Adam Thielen, I think you can still feel comfortable with starting. So I guess Diggs is really the only, the shocker here, right? Still starting Diggs. I think he can have some opportunity up against this Bears secondary. Like I said, there's still some opportunity to get some play up against this Bears secondary. I think they've allowed 730, 750 passing yards. They're not top 5 in that aspect. I think they're it's 13, 14, or 15 or something like that. Middle of the field, right? Not great. So I still see some opportunity for Diggs. I still see some opportunity for Thielen. Someone's got to try to go over the top on this Bears defense. We saw Diggs do it. He bailed himself out one week with a big touchdown run. I think he might do something of the same this week and then check in for a couple of catches in underneath. We saw last week they were getting him involved really early. It was short and quick routes, but hey, I'll take what I can get. Give me another week of Stephon Diggs. Fire up Adam Thielen, best in class there for the receiving group in Minnesota. Was all over Adam Thielen coming into this year. He's been doing everything I said he was going to do. So all about him, not benching him any week. And then the tight ends here, I'm not starting. No Rudolph, no Irv Smith Jr. No thanks. Not enough volume. Bears defense, not the greatest matchup. Just give me the receivers and Dalvin Cook. That's it for the Vikings. For the Bears, not starting Mitch Trubisky. Going to have to travel through the no roads section against Xavier Rhodes in Chicago this week. Going to be missing Taylor Gabriel. You're going to be seeing a lot of Javon Wims, maybe Riley Ridley down there. Not sure what to expect of the passing game for the Bears. Man, I'm not really comfortable starting Montgomery and Cohen either. I feel a little bit more comfortable starting Cohen right now because of the fact that Gabriel is going to be out of this game. So that does lend for some more assistance to Cohen's value, who is in great need of some assistance, I might add. He's just not getting enough action. And when he's getting the ball, he's not doing anything with it. So unless he has high volume like he did week 1 where he caught 8 catches, his value may not be there. But this week, I feel okay starting Cohen. I do not feel good starting Montgomery. I do not feel good starting Allen Robinson, who's going to be lined up against Xavier Rhodes. I just don't feel good about this matchup. The over-under is 38. It's really, really tough. Give me the under just because I think it's going to be a grind-em-out football game. in between the tackles type of game. Montgomery, I want to tell you to start him. You know, I'm a Bears fan. You know, I want to root for him, but I just can't do it. The volume's not there. They're splitting the touches with these running backs. You know, Montgomery caught a fair amount of balls last week. I think he could do something of the same this week, you know, if they don't get Cohen rolling. But I think that should be a priority of the Bears if it's not already in the back of their heads to get Tariq Cohen rolling, because their offense, you know, doesn't look that great right now. You know, the performance last week was good against Washington in Washington, but, you know, both teams are taking bad penalties, walking down the field, you know, to the end zones, you know, practically on some drives. So I'm benching Robinson. I'm starting Cohen. Montgomery is a fringe guy for me. I think you can start him in your flex. I still think that's possible. Give me the over/under at 38. Under. Yeah, give me the under. It's really tough, but give me the under here, guys. I'm just not confident enough in either offense to go off for like big games. All right, next up you have the Cowboys at the Saints. I think you can start Dak Prescott this week, but I think that his ceiling will be limited by a strong rushing game with Zeke Elliott. I look for Zeke to have a big game this week. Obviously, you're going to start him week in and week out. I think Zeke can hit 2 touchdowns this week. The rushing defense and the secondary defense for the Saints has not been great. They've had some pretty good matchups. They're playing at home this week. I do still see their defense as, you know, being sneaky good. I think that Lattimore is going to lock up Cooper somewhat this week. I'm still starting Cooper with confidence, but I'm going to have a little bit more upside for like Randall Cobb and Dev Smith this week because their matchups are just going to be a little bit stronger. And while Cooper's, you know, just being kept a little bit more busy than usual with Lattimore, I do see there being some more opportunities with Cobb and Smith this week. I think that you can get them into your flex spots if available. But like I said, I think that Zeke closes in on the red zone. You know, the Saints have only allowed, I want to say it was like 5 or 6 passing touchdowns so far this season. So they're playing, you know, pretty good in the red zone. They're not playing so good ahead of the red zone, the Saints defense. So I like Dev Smith. I like Cobb this week. I like Cooper. Not as high as some weeks, but I still like his value. Zeke for sure. I think he'll have a big week. You're going to start him. And I think you start Dak Prescott, but you know, don't be surprised if he only throws, you know, 1 touchdown or, you know, only has, you know, 2 total touchdowns if he only has like one passing or 1 rushing. Just because I think that it could be a big Zeke week, and I think that they really lock out the Saints, you know, on the road, you know, in the Saints building, locking them out of the game just by keeping the ball on the ground and just pounding everything in between the tackles. So for the Saints, not starting Teddy Bridgewater yet. He did have that solid performance last week in Seattle against Seattle. You can start him, I think, in super flex leagues. He showed enough confidence with his weapons that he can get the ball moved around a little bit. You're obviously starting your big hitters in Alvin Kamara and Mike Thomas. You're not getting cute there. But I think it's safe to bench Jared Cook at this point. Hasn't showed us enough. Didn't show us anything with Bridgewater in the lineup. So I'm not confident in starting Jared Cook this week. I think you can bench him with confidence. Let's see here. Lat Murray, I think, it needs to get involved. I think that they need to lean on the run even more so. They, you know, kind of need to double down on that. Where I don't feel confident starting him, I could see someone plugging him into the lineup as a flyer. You know, if you're desperate for a running back position, if you got guys on buys, banged up, whatever it is, you know, he's one of the better handcuffs to have. So definitely don't drop him. I know his performances in previous weeks haven't been great, but he is not droppable yet. Still one of the better handcuffs to have in the league. So I think he's an interesting piece this week. I think he might actually find the touchdown. He might find the end zone this week. So yeah, no Bridgewater. Give me the big hitters in Kamara and Mike Thomas. No Ted Ginn. No Jared Cook. No Traquan Smith. None of that get cute nonsense. Just give me the big hitters here in this game. Defense for the Cowboys still going to be pretty stiff. I scrolled up here. I somehow missed Jason Witten. Jason Witten, TD dependent tight end. Not putting him in my lineup. Getting about 3 catches a week. I know you guys would have been really upset if I missed Jason Witten, so I want to make sure I get that in there. All right, last game, Monday Night Football. Cincinnati Bengals at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am starting Andy Dalton. Back to the Andy Dalton well this week after last week's performance against the Bills. I wasn't high on him last week, and Andy Dalton wasn't high on himself in the first half, but the Bengals really came alive in the second half, racked up a bunch of yards. You know, Dalton's still mistake-oriented, but I think he has enough upside up against this Pittsburgh secondary that just hasn't been playing very well. I think that, you know, he should have some solid opportunity this week. Pittsburgh secondary played well last week early on, but then showed their true colors after getting a couple of tip balls for interceptions. Started to rack up a nice yardage total. So yeah, still a lot of holes in that defense against their secondary. Not concerned about starting any wide receivers against them whatsoever. Next up, we have Joe Mixon. Definitely starting him. The defensive front for the Steelers is strong, but we saw Joe Mixon show up against Buffalo, so no reason to be concerned against the Steelers this week. I do think that Mixon will get mixed into the pass game quite a bit this week because the defensive front for the Steelers is pretty strong. So I do see Mixon catching some balls out of the backfield, having some value there. Same with Bernard. I think he'll get mixed into the game plan as well, catching some balls out of the backfield. Not confident enough to start him, though. Keep Bernard on your bench. Starting Boyd, starting John Ross, absolutely. Going to have solid opportunities this week up against this Pittsburgh secondary. Completely abysmal. Boyd's been getting 10 targets a week. John Ross has been like the big yards guy, going off for a lot of big plays, a lot of big chunk plays. So I feel confident starting both of them. Not starting either of the tight ends, Eifert or Uzama. They're splitting time on the field. They're not getting targeted a lot. And with Boyd getting so much volume, and then Ross, using in the deep ball game, and then still having Mixon, still working in Bernard. Some of the other receivers that they mix in, Auden Tate, not someone I'm starting. The volume is just there for these bigger guys, and that's who I want, the guys with the biggest ceiling. So give me Boyd, give me Ross, no other receivers, and Mixon. And Andy Dalton. I think Andy Dalton's going to give you a serviceable week. On to the Steelers, last team of the week you got here. Not starting Rudolph didn't show enough for me in the Week 3 matchup against the 49ers on the road. I thought he could have did a lot more. I think that the Steelers need to lean on the run game. The Bengals, are giving up fifth most rushing yards against, it's fourth or fifth, I don't know. Some of these numbers changed because of the Thursday night game. But yeah, they're letting up a ton of rushing yards still. The Steelers need to get this guy rolling. They need to get all of their big weapons rolling. Juju, Connor. They need to get Deontay Johnson getting some consistency going, or James Washington, anybody, because they need all the help that they can get to rally in this division. Starting James Conner this week. No Jalen Samuels for me. Hopefully they'll lean on him, give him some more action. The matchup is just right for me. I think James Conner is a must start for sure. Juju, got to start him. I'm not starting Deontay Johnson. I'm not starting James Washington. Not getting cute with it just yet. I think Deontay Johnson is the only other option to start there besides Juju, but I'm not feeling comfortable enough to do it. Yeah, he scored a touchdown last week, had a fair amount of targets, but didn't impress me enough overall. So where it's overwhelmingly rushing me to get him into my lineup. So just Juju there. No Vance McDonald. They did trade for Nick Vannett this past week, so he's on the squad now. Vance McDonald banged up, scored 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago when Rudolph came in. You were thinking that there was going to be some upside there. Got banged up last week, taken out. Didn't really do a whole lot. Man, not really sure what to expect from him going forward. But the bringing in of Nick Vannett doesn't really look good for Vance McDonald. They're practically the same dude. In fact, they might be brothers. I don't know. But they're same type of role that both of them will play. Vannett will eat into his workload, even if he's healthy. So not starting Vannett, not starting McDonald. He hasn't been practicing, so there's really no concern to even start him. Not starting Rudolph. Give me Juju. Give me James Conner. And if you need a flyer, Deontay Johnson is your guy. So that's pretty much it. Over-under is 45. Give me the under. I don't think Mason Rudolph does enough on Monday Night Football. Maybe a touchdown, 1 or 2 from Conner. But I don't know if Juju finds a touchdown this week. I think he just gets some volume in the pass-catching game. 6 to 7 catches, 70 to 80 yards. So that's everything, guys. We just went through all the matchups. We are now good to go for Week 4. Whew, things are rolling along. It's going to be Week 8 before we know it. We're all going to be losing our minds out of fob dollars, not knowing where to go. But hey, you'll have me. I'll be here for you. I'm your wingman. Thanks for stopping back in. Please like, subscribe, and share the channel, the video, whatever you can do. Help me out. Get the word out there. Spread around all the love. Appreciate all the support. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for stopping by. Take it to the hizzy. See ya.